The idea of using Gregorian chant in the liturgy can be daunting for a sacred musician. The very fact that it is set apart and so different from what we hear on a day-to-day basis can make it seem foreign, difficult, and impossible to perform. Take it from someone who directs college students in singing chant every week. It is possible to perform, and it may take a while, but the steady use and practice of chant will make it less difficult with every passing week. The best way to start is to start simply. First, you might introduce a simple chant of the ordinary, one that the congregation might know already. You could use the Sanctus from Mass 18, Sanctus, Sanctus, Sanctus Dominus Deus Sabaoth, or the Agnus Dei from Mass 18, Agnus Dei, qui tollis peccata mundi, miserere nobis. Once you have accomplished this, you can give your choir a simple chant that they can prepare each week. I would recommend starting with the Communio chant. The Communio, or communion chant, is, if not always, most often the simplest of the chants for the Mass proper. The visual example here is Visionem, the Communio for the second Sunday of Lent. The text of it is from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 17, verse 9. Tell the vision to no man until the Son of Man be risen from the dead. These are Jesus' words to Peter, James, and John after his transfiguration on the mountain. They are taken from the Gospel for this Sunday of Lent. It is often the case that the Communio chant will contain text from the Gospel for the Mass of that day. This obvious connection to the readings of the liturgy makes the Communio chant a good place to start with your choir and your congregation. Though the Gospel connection won't be there every Sunday, the frequent reference of the Communio to the Gospel is a simple and fruitful opportunity for meditation. Members of the faithful often take a few moments for quiet reflection during the communion procession, so this is a good spot for the choir to introduce one of the chanted propers of the Mass. If your choir masters the antiphon, you may teach them a few of the psalm verses found on the visual example that has been shown. Since communion processions can be long, using the psalm verses in between repetitions of the antiphon is a good way of providing enough music for the whole of the procession. You can find the sheet music for the Communio chants for every Sunday of the year on the Church Music Association of America's website. If you want to start on an even simpler level and with English text, I recommend using the Simple English Propers by Adam Bartlett, which are also available on the CMAA's website. The Simple English Propers are a recent composition, finished in 2011, and are meant to encourage a wider use of the chanted propers. These simple English chants are a wonderful way to introduce the propers to a parish. Teaching a choir to sing Gregorian chant can be challenging, especially if choir members are not familiar with the notation. It is good to have a guide like a book as a tool for teaching. For this, I would recommend the Parish Book of Chant. The Parish Book of Chant contains a number of settings of the Mass Ordinary, as well as many chant hymns to be used at the liturgy. The book also includes a guide to singing chant that can be an extremely helpful resource when teaching a choir to chant. With the help of such a guide, start your choir with simple chants, have them sing chant often, and be patient. the language of chant will gradually become familiar to them. Suppose, however, you are in a situation in which it is impossible for your choir to do a substantial amount of Gregorian chant. You can still give Gregorian chant pride of place by using it as a model for the sacred music you do use. Here are some ways in which you can plan sacred music that imitates the qualities of chant that we have discussed. 1. Strive to be a traditional sacred musician. A sacred musician for the church must always consider what has been handed on to him or her. In order to imitate the traditional quality of chant, you must immerse yourself in tradition. That means learning to love the liturgy. Read the readings for the coming Sunday during the week before. Think and pray about how the Old Testament reading might be connected to the Gospel. Buy a copy of the Gregorian Missal. Read the texts of the propers for each week and meditate on them. Make a point of choosing music that has the same text as the propers. For simple choral settings of the English propers, I would recommend the Simple Choral Gradual by Richard Rice, which can also be found online. This gradual includes very simple 4-part settings of the processional propers of each Mass. They are easy and lovely, and they communicate the text of the propers in a prayerful way. It is also possible for the congregation to join in singing these pieces. By immersing yourself and your choir in the texts of the Mass, you can teach the congregation of your parish that the liturgy is handed on to us, and that sacred music is more than just a matter of taste. It is a gift from the Church. This is being a traditional sacred musician in the best sense. The second way you can imitate chant: make psalmody a priority in your musical selection. We have spoken about how important the Psalms are in Catholic worship. Imitate Gregorian chant by choosing more psalm-based music. Pick one of the processions of the liturgy, the entrance, the offertory, or communion, and have the congregation sing a psalm instead of the usual hymn. Many parishes use a certain collection of responsorial psalms, such as those by Joseph Gelano or Michel Guimont. Use one of these psalms at the offertory, communion, or even the entrance procession. The benefit here is that you would be using music that is already familiar to the congregation, just in a different way. A wonderful psalm to use during the communion procession is Psalm 34, "Taste and see the goodness of the Lord." There is evidence of this psalm being used in Rome during the communion procession of the Mass in the 4th and 5th century. How neat to continue this ancient tradition in your own parish. Also, if you regularly choose choral anthems or meditation pieces sung by the choir alone, start looking for anthems or motets with psalm texts. There are many out there. And the third way you can imitate Gregorian chant: strive for a musical sound that is absolutely sacred. Perhaps in our effort to include so many different types of music at the liturgy, we have forgotten that the music we use at Mass should have a special and sacred sound. The Mass is an intimate time of prayer for the faithful. It is an intimate encounter between Christ and His Church, and the music used must be sensitive to this dialogue of prayer. Gregorian chant really is a model here, because it has a way of silencing the soul and drawing the mind to God. We can try to imitate this in a few ways. First, try singing the responsorial psalm or the parts of the Mass Ordinary a cappella. When a congregation sings without accompaniment, the text of whatever they are singing comes alive in a way it does not when various instruments are playing. Putting an emphasis on the text in this way allows the congregation to focus and helps to create a more prayerful atmosphere. Second, try using the piano less. While the sound of the organ is immediately associated with what happens in a church, the sound of the piano is associated with a wide variety of things: classical concerts, jazz lounges, high school music programs, your little brother practicing in the living room. We associate the piano with so many day-to-day things outside of the liturgy that when we bring it into the liturgy, it tends to make the atmosphere feel ordinary and casual. This is the opposite of what sacred means. Use the organ instead, which does have a distinctive, set-apart sound, and if your parish doesn't have an organ, try doing more pieces a cappella. The result is likely to be much more prayerful than when the piano is used. Lastly, try turning the microphones off. In my experience, I found that microphones are overused and not always necessary. If you belong to a church that has a hard floor, no carpet, you could have a lot to gain by not using the microphones. The sound of natural speech in a church has an authentic and mysterious feel. Think back to when you might have been in a big church or cathedral, and you have heard the sound of a choir or the sound of a priest's voice echoing through the nave. It makes you feel small, like you are in the presence of something much greater than yourself. Gregorian chant thrives in a setting like this. Imitate it, if possible, by naturally using the space your parish has been given. In conclusion, more important than any musical quality of Gregorian chant that has been mentioned here is that Gregorian chant is work done out of love for God. The picture that is most often associated with Gregorian chant illustrates this. It is a picture of Pope Gregory the Great leaning over a parchment that he is writing on. There is a dove hovering above him, dictating to him the writings that he puts on the parchment. This picture communicates that while Gregorian chant was composed by human beings, it is really the Holy Spirit that has given us these beautiful melodies. It is this quality of Gregorian chant that should form the way we think about our vocation as church musicians. We are called by the Lord to hand on what the church has handed on to us out of love for him. The theologian Hans Urs von Balthasar said that the only way one can do theology is on one's knees. The same is true for the sacred musician. The point, at the end of the day, is not that we achieve the highest possible level of musical excellence, but that we are drawn into a greater love of God through the prayer of the Church. May the chants of the Church, those beautiful sighs of the Holy Spirit, lead us joyfully to that end.